Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into
many
it.
motorists, lessons in driving schools, where they told about the adjuster and his gestures, were quite conventional and, in their opinion, absolutely unnecessary. It is worth noting that recently the number of adjusters on the roadway has significantly decreased. Almost everywhere there are traffic lights, so the presence of a traffic police representative is not required. But sometimes there are situations when the equipment fails, or there are other reasons for the adjuster to go to the post and start performing his direct duties. And then it turns out that a large number of drivers simply do not know his gestures, do not understand the signs and commands. Hence emergencies arise. The car starts to move when it needs to stand still or stops, although the driver is shown the green light by gestures. Despite the objective fact that road regulators are now rare, every driver must know and understand all his special signals. Therefore, it is required to fill in some gaps in their knowledge and still learn the rules of behavior when meeting with this guardian of traffic order. Use devices. Before talking about what the significance of whistle signals given by the adjuster, it is necessary to carefully study his possible arsenal. Even from Soviet cartoons, it is commonly believed that the adjuster is a man in uniform who has a rod in his hand. Or it can be a special stick, somewhat resembling a lollipop, in the center of which is a red retroreflective element. This is complemented by a whistle. All of these are standard equipment for a traffic controller. Such items are needed to improve visibility and to increase the audibility of their presence and signals. The whistle attracts the attention of drivers. Gestures are required to clearly understand who and what to do. And here there is a rather frequent question concerning situations when the traffic controller has nothing in his hands or in his teeth. It really happens that there are no additional tools and devices for additional attention. But this is not considered a violation on his part. In no case it is impossible to ignore commands that are given simply by hands and body position. An important feature of the regulators is the fact of their advantage over all the available signs and traffic lights on the regulated road section. If a traffic regulator gives signals contrary to the sign, the driver is obliged to obey. It is the traffic police officers. The significance of his commands at that moment exceeds the significance of road signs, markings, or traffic signals. This is due to the fact that highway road signs may not be currently up to date and traffic lights may be in disrepair. If drivers follow the signs, this will potentially provoke accidents and crashes. Usually, traffic controllers appear at intersections where there is some sort of malfunction with traffic lights, signs are being changed, urgent repairs are being made, or the aftermath of an accident is being dealt with. It is important to note one more nuance. The work of the regulator is aimed not only at controlling the behavior of drivers, but also pedestrians. And therefore, the commands and signals of this person must know both motorists and pedestrians, cyclists, that is, all those who are considered participants in traffic. It is sometimes very useful for pedestrians to learn the commands of the traffic controller in order to avoid possible trouble when crossing roads and intersections where traffic lights are out of order or other situations that entailed the need to involve a traffic police officer to regulate the situation for a certain period of time. Now everyone understands how important it is not only to know, but also to strictly follow the commands of the traffic controller. Knowing the rules of regulation and understanding what you need to do in this or that situation, it will save you from dangerous situations. Prevent accidents, collisions with pedestrians, accidental collisions, and other troubles. Signals. With the help of special signals and certain movements, the driver learns in which directions the traffic regulator allows to continue driving, or when it is necessary to stop, let pedestrians or other vehicles pass. It is not difficult enough to figure out how to correctly understand the adjuster at his post. It requires learning to understand literally a few basic signals. Remembering them, you will minimize all potential risks. Therefore, you will be able to protect yourself and your car from possible unpleasant consequences. By carefully evaluating the actions of the traffic controller at the intersection controlled by him, the driver will be able to react correctly to the commands, move off, or stop in time. The key are three signals, which look as follows. The inspector's right hand is in the raised position. Both arms are down or extended. To the sides, the traffic controller's right arm is extended forward. And to each of these, the driver and also the common pedestrian should react accordingly. Read also, how to properly store a car in an open area. The right arm is extended upwards. This is a warning signal that acts equally on all road users. So, there is no priority here for motorists or pedestrians. When a traffic warden raises his right hand in the air, this signal should be taken as a stop for everyone. Neither cars nor pedestrians can move from their seats. They are required to stop until the traffic officer changes position and gives another command. Regardless of which side or lane you are moving from, everyone is required to stop and stand, waiting for a new signal. Such signals are used when it is necessary to clear the intersection of all traffic and people. This is relevant when it is necessary to let the same special vehicles pass. Such a gesture can be considered a full-fledged alternative to the yellow signal of a traffic light. But if at traffic lights drivers for some reason believe that yellow is not particularly different from green, here it is necessary to strictly adhere to the rules. Yellow requires you to stop and do not move until another command is given. Hands down or out to the sides. Drivers and pedestrians should perceive such signals in the same way. They act as an alternative to a red traffic light at an intersection. Only here some people have a question as to why two different gestures are used for the same command. The explanation is very simple. Sometimes an inspector has to work in quite narrow intersections and roadways. If he were to spread his arms out to the sides, it would cause serious interference with traffic and also interfere with himself. In order to maximize safety, two types of signals have been developed that have identical meanings. However, it is more important to understand exactly what these gestures mean. Imagine that the arms spread to the sides are a barrier, i.e., an obstacle that blocks the ability to move forward at a railroad crossing. When the inspector stands with his back or face to you, holding his hands in this way, you cannot move further. You need to stand until the green light is gestured, that is, you are allowed to go. But there is another situation when the traffic controller stands to your side. This signal allows you to move in a straight line or make a right turn. The right hand is extended forward. Now, what the traffic controller is trying to tell you with this gesture. When he is facing the driver while extending his right arm forward, the only authorized maneuver in this situation is to turn to the right. You may not move in any other direction. When the driver is to the right of the traffic controller or behind him, such a gesture indicates the need to stop in order to wait for his turn to continue moving. This allows the same pedestrians to cross behind the adjuster without fear that cars will start moving. The considered gestures are the main in the work of the road regulator. It is their duty to know and always remember every driver and even a pedestrian in order not to find themselves in a dangerous situation, as well as to prevent the possible receipt of a fine for ignoring priority signals. This can be supplemented with a few more rules. Namely, any commands from the traffic controller only allow you to start moving on both sides of the road if the situation occurs in an intersection. Arms outstretched are always intended to show the direction of travel, where you can move without fear. Regardless of the command, if a traffic inspector's back is in front of the driver's eyes, it should always be perceived as a red light. Therefore, in such a situation you should never move until a new command is given. Although some people still have problems with memorizing these signals, it is not surprising that in order to simplify the memorization of gestures invented different ways and methods. The most effective of them is considered a simple poem. How to quickly memorize all the signals. Let's be frank. In our time, to meet on the road inspector of traffic regulation is an extremely strange and rare phenomenon. And therefore, even experienced motorists who have been driving for many years are very surprised by this fact. It makes them get lost and not quite understand what they need to do in this or that situation. All commands and signs are clear in theory, but in practice for some reason many people have problems with their interpretation and memorization. To somehow solve this unpleasantness, in the people were invented different verses that allow you to understand how you can easily memorize all the signals of the regulator. Read also, How to act correctly to get out of a sinking car if you also have difficulties with how to memorize all the demonstrated gestures of the adjuster. In such a situation, just remember a small poem, or rather a small poem. It sounds as follows. The stick upward is aspiring. All to stand commanded. If the stick looks to the right, go have no right. If the stick looks in the mouth, make a right turn. If the stick looks to the left, drive like a queen, breast and back for the driver wall. To begin with, learn the verse, and thus solve the problem that arises concerning how quickly and easily you can learn all the signals that are given by the hands and tools of the traffic regulator. This verse should be broken down line by line. In total, 5 lines are used here, each of which makes it clear in which directions the traffic controller allows you to move, and in which directions he does not allow you to move. First line tells us that the stick is pointing upwards, and thus tells us to stand still. When the inspector raises his hand upwards, regardless of his current body position in relation to you, all present road users, whether motorists, pedestrians, or cyclists, are obliged to stand still. Moving to any of the possible sides is strictly forbidden. Such a signal is invented to clear intersections and clear the roadway. Second line. Here the stick already looks to the right and says that you have no right to drive. Take such a gesture simply as a red light that comes on at a traffic light. Hence its meaning is very clear. All vehicles on the right side of the driver, at the time of such a command, are obliged to stop and wait until other signals are given, allowing you to continue driving. Third line. Here this very stick of the traffic regulator is directed in your direction, that is, ostensibly looking at your mouth. Thus it commands you to make a right turn. When the inspector is turned with his chest in your direction and directs his instrument at you, this is a command to turn right. Be sure to note that you cannot turn in any other direction in this situation. In fact, this is the same as a green arrow pointing to the right and turned on at a traffic light. Fourth line. Here the regulator's instrument in the form of a rod or a lollipop is pointing to the left, and therefore the driver can feel like a queen. When the inspector is sideways to you, and the stick is pointing to the left side, this fully displays his command. Such a position gives the green light to move in any direction. The only obstacles will be available road signs and markings, which should not be violated. The exception to the royal behavior is streetcars. Drivers of electric transport here are allowed to move along the tunnel of the conditional arms of the inspector. Thus, this command in relation to streetcars allows movement only to the left side. Line 5. It tells us that the chest and back become a wall for drivers. When a traffic inspector turns his back or chest towards you, but his hands are not raised, take this signal as a situation like the first line. That is, do not move. Wait for the next commands that will allow you to continue driving. In fact, you can learn all these rules even without memorizing the verse. Due to its simplicity and humorous context, it is quite easy to memorize it. And learn the rules of behavior when meeting with the traffic controller will not be really difficult. Do not expect that you will never have to deal with adjusters. They can appear in unexpected places and at any time. It all depends on the situation on the road. When there are any breakdowns of traffic lights and modern means of traffic control, emergencies, accidents, or just passing special vehicles, the adjuster necessarily goes to his post and performs the prescribed actions. At the same time, drivers and pedestrians, as full participants of road traffic, must clearly follow all commands. And to follow the rules, they must first be learned and memorized. Violating the requirements of the inspector, who regulates the intersection, you are just as much in violation of traffic rules as when ignoring traffic lights, markings, or road signs. Therefore, do not be surprised if you get a fine for a wrong maneuver after the regulator's command. Everyone must know the traffic rules. It is not only a matter of your personal safety, but also the safety of all road users around you. In conclusion, mastering the signals of the traffic regulator is essential for safe and responsible driving. By understanding the meanings behind each signal and practicing regularly, you can enhance your ability to respond effectively on the road. Utilize techniques such as visual aids, repetition, and real-life practice to reinforce your memory. Remember, being well-versed in traffic signals not only helps you navigate safely, but also contributes to the overall safety of everyone on the road. Stay informed, stay alert, and drive safely. Thank you for watching.